Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Back again. Can't be stopped. That's right. This is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcast network, episode 71. I am your Trek Lord of West Michigan, Fleet Captain of the USS Grand Petoskey, Charlie Carden, coming at you as always with my stellar super duper partner, Katie Q. Katie, good Sunday night to you.
Good Sunday night to you as well, Captain.
All right, Cap. Almost like Captain Crunch. I just don't have the hat. I just don't have the fancy hat. Well, we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going on to go into basically the second quarter of Star Trek Deep Space Nine season 2. But we've got some big stuff coming up in the week that follows. This episode obviously drops on Monday, May 2, but on May 5th, we're getting the season finale of Star Trek Picard, which I can't necessarily say couldn't come soon enough. And then we're also getting the series premiere of Strange New Worlds, which leads us into segment one half of this show. We occasionally have news. And this one we did. Katie, I assume you had a chance to check out the opening credits. Yeah.
I loved it. It had a very kind of classic vibe to it, but also it felt like I was watching an homage to every single intro to a Star Trek show.
Absolutely. And we've not had a Star Trek show since
Discovery.
No, not going. I'm talking about a Star Trek show that had any verbiage in the intro.
Oh, okay. Yes.
We had it was since TNG. Am I totally flubbing that? TNG,
because DS9 doesn't have anything, and I don't think Voyager does.
No. This was the first time. Yeah, you heard. Obviously, it's voiceover from Anson Mount. He's reciting the original. These are the voyages spiel. As you see the Enterprise kind of light up. I am so fired up about this Enterprise because it's just a breath away from the 1701 refit from the original Star Trek films, which has been and always will be my favorite science fiction vehicle of any kind. I absolutely love that ship, and so I just could not be more excited about this program. So, but yeah, on Thursday mornings when we get up, we always get up plenty early, especially when we've got a doubleheader to take on, which we get with this week. Picard is winding down. We're going to be talking about episodes 8 and 9 tonight. So, without further ado, Katie, jump us right into the quick synopsis of episode 8, Mercy.
All right. With time running out before the launch of the Europa mission, Picard and Guinan must free themselves from the FBI custody. Seven and Raffi come face to face with Jurati and the horror of what she's become.
Oh, the horror! Oh my gosh.
The only horror is that I feel like they're just not using Allison up to her full potential. She is eaten every scene that they give her as the queen. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it's just everything else is so bad.
I know, you're right. Talk about peaks and valleys. Again, you and I have been on a sliding scale. It's fun. Akshay and I were talking about this on SFU, which we recorded earlier this evening. That'll come out the Friday after the Monday this episode comes out. But absolutely, feeling the which way is up. Here's 50 plot threads. Pick one. I hope you don't like it very much because we're going to drop it.
Mm-hmm.
When we went from it's modern day and everybody's in Starfleet, but then we get called out to a thing and the thing is a Borg, but is it a Borg? And then it blows everybody up. But then Q is here and and he's changed history, but now he's going to stick us in the past. And then we got to do this thing. But the Borg queen came too because she's, oh my God, just.
Well,
and then there's another song and blah, 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 and Guinan.
Yeah. And the weird offshoot flashbacks, which are technically flash forwards because Picard isn't actually born yet, of all of his childhood, but somehow his childhood is like future past because everybody talks like they're in this like 1800s of like, oh my love, you will always be my shining star, blah blah blah. And I'm like, why are you all dressed in old timey stuff and walking around like it's like the late 1800s?
I mean, Katie, I can answer that one for you. You know what? Fashion is very cyclical. You know, right now we're, you know, I hear the early 2000s are coming back. People are wearing, you know, the big baggy jeans or whatever. And, you know, and if you flash forward another 400 years, you know, they're looking, you know, to 600 years in the past for the clothes. I
don't think that. I mean, it's a good try. It was a real good try.
I mean, I think it's somewhat rooted in reality that you know, that fashion tends to find its way backwards.
As someone who's terrified of low-rise flare jeans, I can definitely say yes. It is cyclical because I'm seeing those again, but I don't think we'll ever get to a flowing white, completely buttoned up the back,
oh my God,
turn of the century gown. At least not for casual wear.
I guess the other thing in this episode that kind of drove me up the wall is that you had the actor playing the FBI agent. It was the exact same, and we posited this on our last episode, the exact same actor that played a time cop that was with 29th Century Starfleet that employed Seven on a mission during the Voyager run where she had to go back and save Voyager in the past. Same actor. Mm-hmm. Who's not
do anything with him.
Who's not a big name actor, and they did. And then he was a guy who saw Vulcans when he was a kid, and so he was Fox Mulder, and it's just like, oh, just no. It was a big no. So yeah, I didn't really get Jurati that she's eating batteries, and then she's gonna choke Rafi out, and then she's the conflict within. But if she's eating batteries and shit, how come she's not all? You know, she's still organic. How come she's not all melty? And it's just...
That was part of it, too. I'm like, okay, she's still an organic... Like, even if the queen has done, like, you know, the nanobots thing, she's still organic, primarily. Like, eating batteries isn't going to help her.
Well, yeah, that's...
Her body can't process that.
All those metals. Well, it was just... you know, I mean, even the Borg you saw in, like, First Contact, for example, they were out in space... and which seemed they were, you know, somehow, you know, surviving with their shields, but they could still be, you know, if you cut them loose in space, they just drifted away or whatever. They still can be killed. They're still organic. And, you know, at the end, that's the end of the movie is the plasma tank ruptures and all the Borg get liquefied. And so, yeah, they're still obviously sensitive to the same, you know, physical cleavages that we are as people. So, yeah, I don't know why she's eating batteries or assimilating batteries, but yeah, so that's that. Anything else in this episode that okay, let's flip the script. Anything in this episode that you found redeeming and interesting? We did get Corey Sung back, and they were trying to do something with that plot line. Q bumps into her. They're still like, we got to sabotage Europa and da-da-da, this thing and that thing. So
I was excited to see Q coming back. The whole idea that he's dying is very interesting. And then he just didn't exist in the next episode. And it seemed like they had an idea for this whole time travel queen thing. And they were trying to figure out how to make that happen. So they just shoved Q in. Because, I mean, at this point, I am pretty convinced that the queen we saw in the beginning is Jurati.
Yeah, agreed.
And then she went through the, you know, she's going to show up in the future and then be like, hey guys, this is the new Borg.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, so we've got this like weird time loop thing, but there needed to be some way to kind of kick it off. And it seems like that's what they used Q for, which is really weird. And I'm really upset. And I know you said what you liked, and it's a double-edged sword because, you know, but because I love Q. I really enjoy Q. He's amazing. And then you had the whole thing with Guinan and Q, very good. But why are they using him as a throwaway character at this point?
You know,
it's Q.
I guess, and even I'm looking at even the writing credits as I bring up the entry for the next episode. We got some names that even I'm not familiar with as people who are current writers and showrunners of Star Trek, and then a director I'm not familiar with. So, you know, are we turning everything over to, is this like a Star Trek Nemesis situation where we're just kind of turning things all over to somebody that we don't know? I mean, I just...
it feels like they mad-libbed the plot and then had everybody write an episode of it.
Oh my God. Like Mad Lib, like the outline for the season.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, here in this episode, the Q gets involved with Renee Picard, and then Dr. Baltar shows up, but he's Picard's uncle, dad.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And and things didn't get any better as we get into episode 9, Hide and Seek. Again, we've got, we're still, I'll read the summary. Picard and his crew fight for their lives as they come under attack from a new incarnation of an old enemy. It's the Borg. But to survive, Picard must face the ghosts of his past. Not really sure why. Seven and Raffi have a final showdown with Jurati. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot going on here that just doesn't seem to connect to anything. Did Q come back in this one? No, Q was missing again.
Q was completely absent from this one again.
So we got no Q. We did get a name drop of Janeway and the fact that Seven tried to join Starfleet proper after the Voyager series, which I thought was cool.
I just don't understand how none of them get Annika's trouble with her duality. Like, it's not like that's the hidden secret, but even Raffi's still like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not accepted? What? This is so confusing and foreign to me.
Yeah, we're fighting the Borg, and why don't people like the Borg? I don't.
Why do you feel uncomfortable being part Borg? I just don't understand.
Read a book, babe. Read a book called People Don't Like the Borg.
Everybody just kind of ghost, anytime Seven mentions being part Borg or the troubles that they're like, oh, whatever. Picard was part Borg too, and he doesn't bring it up all the time.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he was Borg for 3 hours, and he doesn't bitch about it all the time. Yeah, exactly correct. So, but yeah, you got Adam. The Adam Sung character kind of turns into a diehard villain in this.
Yes, with really bad CG. What was with that night scene of him sitting? You could totally tell it was green screen.
Right.
It looked like a bad sci-fi, like the channel sci-fi movie.
Right. And he's wearing, I swear to God, I don't have a full picture, but he's wearing a black turtleneck with a black blazer. And I'm like, he's trying to go for latter day Hans Gruber here. It's just, I'm not buying it. He's just, and there have been some bad apples in the Sung family tree. We know that because I've told you all about the plot line in Enterprise with the augments and everything. But just, he went from, a quasi-benevolent scientist. He's like, no, I'm just going to kill Picard. And it's not a big, I'll kill Renee Picard as well and bloody whatever. It doesn't matter. Right. But they just keep digging down deeper. I did have something in this, and I mentioned it when I was talking to Extra, that I thought was a smart retcon. In this episode, obviously full spoilers, we do see that the culmination of Yvette Picard's mental illness is that she commits suicide by hanging herself alone in a room. Jean-Luc, we're assuming him to be about age 10, walks in and sees it. And then he goes on to say, this traumatic event, I blocked it out of my memory. I do recall in later years that I would imagine speaking to her as an elderly woman. We would have a cup of tea, which is exactly what I talked about in our last episode. In reference to the early TNG season 1 episode, where no one has gone before, the Enterprise ends up in a place where their thoughts become reality. Picard imagines speaking to his extremely elderly mother.
Right.
And he thinks it's real. He thinks, well, you might have just thought, Picard here is in his 60s, so maybe his mom's been dead, for 20 years or whatever, when in fact she had been dead since he was, 10 years old. I thought that was a smart retcon because the very first thing I thought she didn't, he saw her as an old lady. She didn't die that way. And then he was raised by his father. Now, the flip side to that is that in all of these flashback episodes, and maybe it's a product of his memory, Picard has an older brother, Renee, who was Robert, who was the focus of the TNG episode Family, which followed the Best of Both Worlds Borg two-parter in season 4. I was just watching it earlier this week. So there's zero mention. They absolutely treat him like an only child. But in fairness, that's in his memory. So it's not, we're not watching a newsreel of family movies from the Picard family. I'll give them that, but my God, yeah, everything else, like, Seven gets shot and fatally, and they're calling Agnes, the Borg Queen, Borgatti. So Borgatti zaps her. And
that's probably better than what I was saying. I was calling her Jurati-Mommy. So
Jurati. Okay. Oh, hold on. I think we might have a name for the Jurati-Mommy.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Boom. Episode named, unless we come up with something better later.
I don't know if we'll be able to come up with something better than that.
I think it's a winner. So, yeah, I don't know. That's what I found to be a takeaway that I liked, that protected canon, which I'm a little nutsy about canon. I like canon. I've always liked something you can kind of wrap your arms around and say, okay, well, I know that this happened in this and it spawned something, whatever it is. I like that, as opposed to like with Star Wars, and it's all over the place, and it's it's the EU, and there's a 6 foot tall green rabbit named Jackson, and whatever you want. So
I would have just preferred them not go the mental illness route altogether. I don't think it was handled really great. And especially like coming at it from a child's perspective, it was, I just will say, it doesn't seem like it was done very well.
Well, and
it was very trope-ish.
Agreed, and more to the point, how does it serve the story at all?
The reason why Picard has never fallen in love is because he was hung up on his mom. Oh, bad wording.
Oh, God. You see,
it
would almost be a better title, but it's a little too brutal. So we're not going that way.
Yeah, too soon. Way too soon. That was poor wording on my choice. I apologize. But it was like he had mommy issues. And so that was his entire reason why he just never was able to attach himself to another woman. Okay. Which, again, just felt very like Freudian or Oedipus complex kind of to me.
But I bring it all the way back to, what does that? I mean, obviously, we see, like, in that first episode, the Talon makes a pass at him, and he's like, so right. Okay, what does that have to do with the rest of what's going on? I feel like nothing.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like it's just, and again, because we have a story that's Q, Borg, Guinan, with this thing, the Europa and the dystopian, this and that, and blah blah blah, so on and so forth, and whatever, and it's just. I just kind of want it to be over.
And I really feel like they could have cut out everything to do with his childhood, and it would have been a more cohesive story.
Right. It's like I said, it's just, okay, well, and by the way, we're going to solve all your life's problems while we're fighting the Borg and Q. And again, the Borg and the Q and the kind of thing, it just doesn't gel. Now, you think about the fact that Q introduced us to the Borg, and Guinan is his arch nemesis. Okay, we have 3 things from one of the few good episodes in TNG season 2.
Also, didn't the Borg like wipe out Guinan's like her people? So like they're a huge part, and at that point, like, why not get Guinan involved? She knows the Borg.
Right.
Like that should have been that would have still been a hook to get Guinan involved and say, hey, we're here because the Borg are going crazy. She would have been like, oh, okay, I know how that is, instead of being like, hey, well, we're kind of here because of like something that goes weird with humanity in the future, so you have to help us. Like, she already is checked out from humanity because, we kind of suck.
Right. Yes. But we didn't even carry her over from the first episode to the second episode. She wasn't really involved in anything. Like, she didn't go back to France.
She's just been there to be kind of like this helpful side character.
Right.
Like, kind of turning into the trope that Whoopi Goldberg specifically didn't want Guinan to turn into.
Right. So it's just, we are off the page with just tropey crap. And I've never been down on a season of Star Trek like I feel like I've been down on this one. And I don't know if it is, and again, something else that Oxford and I were talking about, I don't know if it's because the seasons are so short that we don't balance, like, oh my God, that was a great episode, and then we had a duffer one, and then we had 2 great ones, and then there was 1 bad one, then there were 4 great ones, but we're so trapped into the fact with 10 episodes that we just really need everything to fire on all 8 cylinders, and we're just not getting it. You know what I mean?
And it felt very strong. Like I remember the first 2 episodes, I was like, holy crap, I am loving this. I am so excited for it. And then it just like slowly unraveled, where they had too many plates they were trying to spin at once.
Right. And you got Elnor coming back as a hologram and wreck and shop, and that's great, but whatever. So, they just got a lot of eggs in the basket of what's going to happen in this last episode. So they've got to find a way to turn it around when at the end of it, Girardi took off with La Serena and warped away because we
and now they're all trapped in the past.
Yeah, they're all trapped. They can still get around because they have the Gary 7 chick, the version of.
Oh yeah, so she'll probably end up figuring out a way to get them back,
right. So
back to the future, but without Doc.
Yeah, they can still zip around or whatever. So it's all well and good, but it's just there's so much to. How are they going to bring together like 8 plot threads and anything, and then put them back at that moment where we're assuming, Jurati-Mommy blew them up in the 25th century? I'm fucking terrified. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna. And I'm imagining there's going to be some sort of weird cliffhanger that's going to be from season 2 to season 3 because season 3 is supposed to be like the final season,
right?
So it's going to be something random that they're going to leave hanging.
I can't even really form a cogent thought around that process. You know what I mean? I know season 3 is going to have the whole TNG cast together, obviously with Brent Spiner playing Asung, because there's no Data and everybody else playing their regular characters. But I just can't. Can't we just go to bed and wake up and have a do-over of season 2? Because oh my god.
So here's my theory. I think they're going to clear up the Borg thing with Jurati and finish that, and then they're going to leave a cliffhanger with Q, and the final season is going to be about Q's death.
Okay. I am titillated to find out if that's the case, because you're right, there's way too much going on for all of this to be just this colossal waste of and here's stuff that we didn't get together at all. Shall see. We shall see. Anyway, okay, let's close the book on Picard and let's move on to something that is potentially better. We have the second quarter, the second installment of 4 installments of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Again, the sophomore season, I think, certainly as evidenced by last time, kind of finding its way out of the sophomore slump. This aired in late 1993 through early 1994. Hold on just one sec.
Okay.
All right, brief break for station identification. So anyhow, we're jumping into another 6 episodes of this show. Which, the very first one out the gate introduces something incredibly important. So I will get started. Episode 7 of the season is Rules of Acquisition. Directed by David Livingston, a Dr. Livingston, I presume. One of the stalwarts of the show. Story by Hilary J. Bader and teleplay by Ira Stephen Bear. Again, somebody who's a cornerstone of the show. So this is some serious talent involved. November 7 of 1993, Grand Nagus Zek in his second appearance. The spectacular Wallace Shawn assigns Quark to initiate investigations with a planet in the Gamma Quadrant, but Quark's new associate is not what he seems. Oh my. So addressing gender inequality issues within the Ferengi Alliance. Katie, this is much more up your alleyway than this was mine, so take it away. I
remember the first time I watched this, I was really excited to see where it went because I absolutely loved Pell. I thought she was amazing, and even the second time around, I was really excited, and I absolutely love her. I feel like they did Quark dirty in this one. I mean, I get that he is, he's a Ferengi, he's the stereotype, and I have my own issues with the misogyny that comes with a Ferengi, because for someone who's all extreme capitalism, it doesn't make sense for you to not take complete advantage of any asset. So regardless of whether you're a man or a woman or whatever your gender identification is, if you're smart and you're capable of getting ahead,
right?
But that's a whole different thing. I would have really loved to see Quark be like, hey, you know what? Now, Pell, you can stay here, and her becoming part of the cast and them having a whole kind of going on and running Quarks and being really strong and kind of overturning that stereotype. I think that would have been a stronger thing than having Quark be like, well, yeah, I acknowledge that you're really smart and I actually really like you, but you need to go away now because
you can't fight City Hall.
I can't. Yeah. Well, and also I just can't get over my own internal biases of what this would mean.
Right.
So,
the beauty of it is later in the series that exact same thing happens, that those biases are addressed.
Right. With his mom and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And through the series, through the end, and not to spoil anything on a 30-year-old TV show. That does absolutely change radically by the end of the show when Rom becomes Grand Nagus, and when he's installed, he completely, it changes Ferengi society. So, but again, sorry about the spoiler on an episode from 25 years ago.
Well, it's to do with the Grand Nagus, though, Zach, because doesn't he end up marrying Quark and Rom's mom?
He does, yeah. So, and she what she's doing is running the Ferengi Alliance at that point because he's old and senile. But again, hate to get ahead of ourselves. We'll be talking about. I mean, that's years down the road for us talking about, segment wise.
So I guess I absolutely, like most of DS9, I did really enjoy the episode. It always makes me a little sad because I really enjoy Quark overall as a character. It's just when they kind of throw that stuff in there where they're like, oh, well, he's a jerk, so obviously they're going to be misogynist. And I'm like, come on, guys, they're smarter than that.
I know, exactly correct. So, trivia note, first mention of the Dominion happens in this episode through Quark's negotiations with the guy. I can't remember. Actor Brian Thompson is in this episode. He's the real muscly guy. He's been in everything, but Katati is the name of the race. My God, I'm so embarrassed. Let me click on the link and look it up because I'll be embarrassed until I'll be blue in the face. Let's see here. The Dozai, because they're buying the Tulaberry wine. So they're basically they're Chamonix. They're fancy ass wine people. Good stuff. So anyway, a lot of like Star Trek does, taking social norms, turning them on their ear. That's what Star Trek does the best. All right, next one is yours.
All right, Necessary Evil, directed by James L. Conwin, written by Peter Allen Fields of November 14th, 1993. An attempt on Quark's life reopens a 5-year-old murder investigation. I felt like this was a what's his face from the TNG where Picard
Dixon Hill.
Dixon Hill, yes, it felt very Dixon Hill, but better because Odo, doesn't it start out with him being doing the voiceover, but he's like, humanity is stupid with the way that they want to
they like record
everything all the time.
He said everything it was a rainy day and on DS9 and this and that. So I dug this. I thought this was a cool early episode that kind of turned character interactions on their ear because you're like, oh, Kira and Odo are good guys and they're pals and whatever. And, they've known each other for several years because this showed, again, tossing back 5 years, which would have been season 2 of TNG, our favorite season of season 2 with your favorite Dr. Pulaski. Wouldn't it be great if she would have just shown up in the middle, walked in, hey, I'm here on I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not, this isn't Federation space. I got to go. She would have been a great co-star. And then like on LA Law, her character would fall down the turbo lift shaft. Unfortunately not. But I like this. I think it kind of turned it on to say that, that Kira and Odo have known each other forever. They trust each other. They know everything about each other. And then it turns out this 5-year-old murder investigation, the end of it, spoiler alert, while the entirety of this plot is covering up who did what and why, and it has to do with this widow who's profiting from it, that Kira lied about committing the murder because the guy she killed was a Cardassian collaborator, and that's what she did. That's simply what she was. People at war. She was she was a resistance fighter. She was a black ops operative, and they killed the enemy. He was a bad guy, and
she also admits that she didn't go there intending to kill him. She was trying to get the list of names from his shop that showed who was also collaborators, and he came in on her. So it was kind of like a necessary evil. Oh, it's the name of the show. What?
Whoa! How did they do that? Oh my gosh!
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, but obviously her purpose in acquiring the list is that whoever was on the list was then going to be killed because they, and that's even addressed in an episode later in the season, is that, there's a standing list of Bajoran, Cardassian collaborators who are Bajoran, and if they show up, they will be executed. They get caught, they're going to die. Yeah. Because that is, it's, sell your own people out. That's exactly what you deserve. Yeah. But Odo didn't know. So Odo was like, well, you lied to me back then, and I don't know what that means to us. And there was a great closing shot of this episode. They're in his office, and she's on one side of the room. He's on one other side of the room, and they're just kind of staring at each other kind of blankly because there's just nothing to say in this moment of what has redefined their relationship. So I thought it was pretty pivotal, especially considering obviously where their relationship ends up later on down the line.
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was a really great way because a lot of times Star Trek does try to have those like underlying tones and themes that go along with it, that are referencing more nuanced contemporary topics. So with this one, it did feel very much like with Odo being like, no, I am the neutral party. I am not on the side of the Cardassians or the Bajorans. But as he's talking to Kira and she keeps stressing, no, you need to pick a side. By not picking a side, you are picking a side. And especially right now, they're, with everything that's going on with our environment and our culture of saying you can't just sit on the sidelines and say you're not involved because that's giving power and authority. Like, even if you don't think you're working for the Cardassians, you're working for the Cardassians by not standing against the Cardassians.
And not to get too deeply political, this came with both my stepkids who were of voting age in the 2016 election. Said, "Oh, fuck Trump! I don't want to vote for Trump." Well, so I'm not going to vote for anybody. Well, a vote for nobody was a vote for Trump, and that's why we had him for 4 years. Is certainly one very simplistic way to look at it. If you don't make your voice heard, then you're contribute. You're part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Right.
In general, not to get too heavy on you, I doubt very much we have any listeners who are right-wing Republicans, and if we do,
have not liked me. Then that was a real bad idea to bring me on.
I absolutely encourage you to seek mental help if you love Trump. But anyway, we'll see if that gets us flagged. So anyway, moving on to episode 9, Second Sight, directed by Alexander Singer, a very big name in Trekdom. Then we get into some weird names. I do not know who Mark Garrett O'Connell is. Don't hear from him again. Did the story and the teleplay, but also Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolf, who are stalwarts of the series, did the teleplay. So obviously, I feel like when they bring in a ringer or somebody who's new to write a story, and then you see it's backed up by existing people, they probably came in and polished the shit out of it just to make it seem more Star Trek-y.
I think so. I think you can tell with this one.
Without a doubt. So this aired in just before Thanksgiving in 1993 in November. Sisko falls in love with a woman visiting the station, but she is not what she appears to be. Didn't we? Oh, we got not what it seems about Quark. So there's a lot of mistaken identity shit going on in this whole season.
Yes.
So Sisko is, and it's weird because the timing is really off. He's like, in his opening commander's log, he's like, well, I realized it was just celebrated the anniversary of the Wolf 359, and when my wife died, and that was probably about 3 months before this. So fits for your episode, but yeah, because Wolf 359 happened right at the beginning, and this is 9 episodes in, he's probably about 3 or 4 months off. But that's me just nitpicking it up. There's plenty of other stuff to nitpick up about this episode. So yeah, Sisko falls in love with a woman who kind of drifts on the station, and she's like, oh, blah, 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 this thing and that thing. You're so handsome and charming. Oops, I got to go. And so she's like Cinderella, right? And this happens a couple of different times.
Yep.
And it all kind of centers around
very Rikery.
Very right. Yeah, exactly. So it all the whole plot line is kind of centering around this this super egotistical terraformer guy who's traveling aboard a Federation starship. He's like, everybody come to my cabin for dinner. And Sisko walks in, and there's that same woman, but she's very frumpy clothes and like, I don't know you, dude. And she's like, really? Your name isn't Fenna? And she's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And she takes off. So what we ultimately finds out is that she's in the super unhappy marriage, but she's an alien. She's from this race that does not do divorce. So even though she's miserable with her husband, she solves that misery by astral projecting herself as some kind of vampy ghost who goes out and hooks up with other guys.
I guess so. It was never fully explained. So, I mean, this one was definitely a low ringer for me. Like, as far as stuff that could go out of, like, that just doesn't need to be seen again in DS9, this one is definitely on that list for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming out of the era, and season 1 was packed with episodes that were just like, yeah, we had to have an episode. Mm-hmm. And there was, and again, when you have 20 to 26 segments that you got to produce in a 9-month television season back in the day, you're going to have plenty of duffers, you know what I mean? Where alternately, what's supposed to happen with shows like Picard is that you have 10 great episodes in a cohesive story, which is not what we have going on right now. But I digress.
Yeah.
That's what like Discovery does a nice job of it. Like season 4 of Discovery, we have this mission or season 3 of Discovery, we have this mission. And at the end of it, we find out why this thing happened and we're able to help out. So Picard's not really knocking it out. I think they did a pretty good job of it in season 1. I really like season 1, but under the old model, we're going to throw out a lot of D-list stuff. This was not the worst of it. It was in the neighborhood. So
yeah, it was that trope of, oh, I met her twice. It's been 2 days. I'm in love with her. Obviously, she's the most amazing person ever. I'm like, you literally don't even know her last name. You don't know if Fenna is a first or last name. You cannot be in love with her. Stop. Just smack you all over the station.
It's totally like Cher. From a species that wants to tough out marriage so bad that they'll astral project themselves as a loose woman.
If it was that like she just didn't like, if her culture just didn't divorce, or if it was like she physically, like if there was something about like the bonding pair, like she couldn't leave him.
Oh, it made it. Well, it said you're right, because that was left vague. He says, well, the blah, 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 whatever the race is, they mate for life. And he didn't say because culturally they do it or biochemically they can't do it. You don't. Yeah, you're right. You don't know. So, but the good news is that this is not a species that's ever seen again because it was a crappy story. and then we can simply move on. That's what's kind of nice about the space station is that they can simply move on.
Yes.
And not have to worry about that stuff. So, all right, speaking of moving on, I think we move on to a better episode with number 10. So go ahead.
Yes, we have Sanctuary by Les Landau, story by Gabe Esso and Kelly Miles, teleplay by Frederick Rappaport. It aired in November 28th of 1993. And this is a group of refugees come through the wormhole in search of Katana, their fabled homeworld.
Oh, again, Star Trek kind of sliding back into the seat of the refugee issue, which is obviously enormous with everything going on in Ukraine right now. It's obviously been enormous across the past 50 years in the Middle East and cultures all over the place. But yeah, the Skria is the name, and they have one of these rare. It's rare, but you think it would happen that much more. But a species comes to the Federation space that the UT, the Universal Translator, doesn't lock on right away. So she's just speaking gibberish, and everybody's like, huh, what? They got to keep them talking. They got to keep them talking until they get it going. But it just serves to really reinforce how culturally different this species is, because they're a female-dominated society. I love it how she's at a staff meeting, and it's, her and Kira. She immediately latches onto Kira. Kira's like her best friend and her emissary in this. But then I think Bashir and O'Brien are sitting there with Dax. And Kira says, well, you look a little uncomfortable. You doing all right? She says, yeah, I guess. It's that men usually don't do meetings because their little emotional brains can't really handle it. I was like, oh, shit. That was flipping the script. But you know what? I've been to a lot of meetings with men that I don't care for. I prefer the company of women largely myself, so I totally get it. But no, that was a big whoa. And sexually, they have pairs of men. They're bigamists. So yeah, she goes to her room in the middle of the night, and she gets up, and her two men folks standing in the door frame. No, it's you go back to bed. It's okay. So she's boss, or you think she's boss. Until a lot of not really great stuff happens with the younger Skrean. Now, something interesting about the younger Skrean characters, we have the son of Walter Koenig is the main guy, the son of Chekhov from the original series. I'm drawing a blank on his name. He was Boner in Growing Pains. Unfortunately, about 15 years ago, committed suicide. So he's no longer with us. But another one of the actors one of the characters was played by actor Leon Orser, who you've seen in everything, including here. Is because I know Voyager is one of your key series. In the episode where the EMH was on the other ship, where he had to interact with an alien EMH that had gone nuts and killed all the crew. That was Leon. Yeah, same dude. And then I feel like the third actor was somebody else, and I probably have to look it up. But ultimately what we find out is that these these Skryans, they need a home. There's 3 million of them. They said, our fabled home of Quintana is Bajor. We want to say, we want you to let us settle on the southern continent because we're farmers and we can revitalize that area because the Cardassians, poisoned it or whatever. And the Bajorans say no for reasons that probably, politically speaking, make a lot of sense. Well, we don't feel we can support you, and it's really very unpredictable. And meanwhile, Sisko and the gang find another planet in the same sector that they can, settle them on. They're like, no, it's got to be Bajor. They're very, hands down. But then there's, a diplomatic incident where the kid who plays Boner crashes his ship and kills himself. And so ultimately they go off, and then it was the Skryan lady says to Kira, saying, 50 years of Kardashian occupation have made you scared to trust, and we really could have helped you out, but you screwed yourselves. It's like when your ex-girlfriend says, oh, you'll never find anybody else like me.
Yeah.
But the Skryans were kind of gross, and they had like bad skin issues and something. So I don't know that invalidates them as a people, but
doesn't. No, that definitely doesn't. I would say it was more their attitude. This was definitely it got closer to the mark than some of the past refugee stories that we were seeing in like TNG, for example.
Right.
But it still felt like they were afraid to not vilify them in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Because
exactly.
I was like, okay, there is an alternate planet that is completely habitable. Everything's great. And they find this planet, and then they go, no, we don't want that planet. We want to go to Bajor. And like, Bajor is a war-torn, just getting past an occupation with a barely functioning government. And you want to throw 3 million people into the mix? I can completely understand if they're like, hey, no, you have this other option. It's probably a better idea for you to pick this other option because we can't guarantee your safety and security here.
Right.
And you're like, no, you all are monsters.
Yeah, it's just and it's really right up the alleyways of beggars can't be choosers. Like, hey, we're willing to help you. We found a solution. But the art of negotiation and the art of compromise is that you don't always get what you want, but what you do get is somewhere to live instead of living on your crappy ships that are falling apart.
Right.
You can have a life, or but yeah, they want to be. No, we want what we want, and we want it because we know better. Which is always people who always think they know better just kind of drive me nuts. Anyway,
right. I would have liked to see it honestly extended maybe a little bit because DS9 is known for being more serialized. Of saying, okay, cool. If you are farmers, then have some of your people come to Bajor, and if you want to help so much, then why don't you start 2 settlements? Because then you would have people who can help support you on a stable planet where you can farm. And then if you want to come in and see if you can go ahead and start tilling the northern continent because it had been completely demolished by the Cardassian rule. And, entire of Bajor is under famine. So say, yeah, sure, if you want to come and help, awesome. But instead they were like, well, no, since you didn't give us your planet, then we're not going to help you at all.
Right. Exactly correct. Yeah. Pretty ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know. They could have been one of those that could make it. There you go. There's your fanfic, Katie. Go for it. I want to see.
I'm going to write an alternate world there.
Sanctuary follow up, and we'll publish it in the next Grant Petoskey newsletter. But yeah, okay. Well, moving on. We go from great and poignant to completely pointless. That would be episode 11. Rivals. This is directed by David Livingston, again coming back. Story by Jim Trombetta, not a Star Trek name. Michael Piller, series co-creator. So okay, yeah, a little. And teleplay by Joe Minowski, who is a stalwart of the series. First episode aired in 1994, the year I graduated from high school. Geez, I'm old. Quark feels threatened when a con artist arrives on the station and opens up a competing bar. Meanwhile, Chief O'Brien is determined to beat Dr. Bashir at racquetball. That second line, 1,000% sounds like something you'd see in an episode of Roseanne, which was was so very sitcom. Your guest star in this episode was Chris Sarandon, who's the husband of Susan Sarandon, so a notable name. He was also the villain in The Princess Bride a few years before
Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah, Prince Humperdinck. There you go. Which is just Humperdinck is just a terrible name, but I digress. Very much a throwaway episode. Interesting to note that his name is Martis Mazur, and he's an Elorian, same race as Guinan, which I don't think I picked that up the first time I watched it. I certainly picked it up before now, but rewatching them, the same as Guinan. I thought that was interesting. So a race of listeners, but instead of being a benevolent bartender, like let me share the wisdom, he's a hustler. He's a hustler. He's a swindler. So he's like Quark, but he's a little bit better at it. And he finds his way onto this, luck generating machine that he can open a casino around it. And ultimately, this was, what's always referred to in Star Trek as a bottle show. So it's a show that takes place entirely on the station with largely existing sets, though the racquetball court, I feel like we've seen it somewhere before. I think they built it for TNG back in season 4. Because there was an episode that it was in it, but largely it was all existing sets and just a few co-stars. So it's kind of, by call it bottle show, it's like a money saving show. I thought it was pretty unremarkable. There wasn't really anything to take away from it except that O'Brien and Bashir are really moving a little further along in the fact that they do become best friends. But in this, they're very much like it's the rivals, it's the duality of the rivals, Bashir O'Brien, and then Mazur and Quark, and then in the end, Mazur ends up being outswindled by this, this elder, this widow is like, I just need some money to open a such and such. And she, rips him off and he ends up penniless again. So again, in the Federation, it doesn't really matter if you get all your money stolen because they're not a finance-based society, but also serves as a reminder is the fact that Bajor is not the Federation and people do still need money. So, so anyway, what were your thoughts?
I mean, I thought it was, filler episode. It was kind of like you said, a bottle episode, but it was entertaining. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I definitely liked it better than, what was we just saying, Second Sight.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, it was a fun kind of, like you were saying, throwaway episode. I didn't really, I appreciated Prince Humperdinck being in it. I thought that was very funny when he popped up.
I think he played the scenes well, and I thought he was a great little Quark. I did enjoy that. All right, episode 12. Take us home, my friend.
All right, The Alternate by David Carson. It was directed by David Carson. Story by Jim Trombetta and Bill Dial. Teleplay by Bill Dial, and it was aired January 9th of 1994. The Bajoran scientist who used to be Odo's teacher arrives with evidence of others of Odo's kind.
Womp womp. What?
Womp, what? Yes.
I know,
very
exactly.
Much so.
Yeah, so we have, David Carson is a stalwart of the franchise, but Jim Trombetta and Bill Dial are kind of, those names I've never heard before. So, this ended up being a script that, while it offered the early suggestion is Odo's mysterious kind and blah, 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 this is going to be a big revelation. It's touched upon, it was even just earlier in this segment in The Necessary Evil that it was mentioned that there was a Bajoran scientist that was in charge of Odo because Odo was discovered in the Denorius Belt by the Cardassians, you would assume, because it was it was 10 years prior to the series starting or whatever it was. And then he was put in a Cardassian lab with a Bajoran scientist who studied him and kind of taught him to, make shapes and learn how to communicate and blah, blah, blah. Tricks. The Cardassian neck trick, exactly. Mm-hmm. But which is, I don't know, was that I think that was mentioned in this episode or certainly gets mentioned.
No, it was mentioned in the
in the
flashback episode.
Right.
Necessary Evil.
Yes. So this was Dr. Mora, who was actor James Sloyan, who was in an episode of TNG in season 3 where he played a Romulan defector who brought the Enterprise, there's going to be an invasion and it's on this planet. It turned out that they were kind of using him to pull a Federation ship into the neutral zone and attack them. And one of my favorite episodes of that, and kind of when things were really starting to turn around in TNG. But no, great actor. He shows up several other times in, I believe, Voyager and Enterprise and maybe even a DS9 later on. So he's kind of one of those, like, let's get James Sloyan on the phone and we'll get him for an episode. But yeah, he plays Dr. Maura Pole, who is the father figure, for want of a better term, for Odo. And this is
proclaimed father figure, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I'm your daddy.
Definitely not feeling the father figureness.
Yeah, he was. He was. When he generally gets pissed off and he doesn't get that Father's Day card. Mm-hmm. So he comes along, and again, the whole episode really proves to be a red herring. They don't really find out anything about Odo's people, but instead they bring back this, virus that makes Odo act crazy and turn into a big monster. So it's kind of a monster of the week virus episode.
Yeah.
which just kind of goes nowhere, which really lends itself back to the fact that the episode was written by two non-Trek writers. So it just didn't, I don't know if they brought in a lot of people early on because they somehow wanted to have these throwaway episodes that just let people, kind of left people with no impression of what the hell was going on with anything. I have no idea. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but what the hell do I know? You know what I mean? But yeah, this was, we're getting to the middle part of, the first, I would say the first, quarter that we looked at of episodes in our last episode had some really great ones. We had the kickoff trilogy. We had the Cardassians episode. I just thought that this was kind of full of stinkers. I don't know about you. I mean,
I kind of liked the alternate. I thought the ending was a little weird because it seemed like the doctor kind of was like, oh, okay, no, actually I was mistaken by everything. And I was like, it usually doesn't work that way.
Yeah, right.
Because it did feel like they were building out Odo's character. And for someone who has a mysterious backstory, there's not a lot to go with. So you have to work and really pull to create these stories and backdrops for them to have something to bounce off of. So introducing this character that was very much a toxic parent figure and coming, being someone who has my own toxic parent figure to deal with, there was a lot of reflection where I was like, he's talking over Odo. Like at one point he flat out says, oh yeah, tell Kira this story about, how I figured out you were smart. And so Odo starts to tell it and he continually interrupts, continually talks over him and just is incredibly disrespectful because everything Odo does, he refers to him as a specimen, as a creature. And it's very obvious that he doesn't credit Odo for what he can do. Everything is he's mimicking, or the doctor taught him how to do it. Almost like he's a trained, he's a trained monkey who can talk.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's a deeper sense to that of having, like you said, a toxic friend, a toxic family member in your life who is just like, why do I put up with this person treating me the way that I do? Like, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old or talking about me like I'm a 5-year-old instead of a grown ass adult. You know what I mean? So yeah, I certainly feel the deeper issues of it. So I understand where you're coming from. The balance of the episodes as a whole. I love Necessary Evil. I thought there were some good issues raised in Sanctuary. I thought Rivals was amusing. But when you put it all together, it just, maybe we get too spoiled with the thought of a thematic arc-based season because, looking back at the way stories used to be told, it used to be like, doot, 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 doot. And even DS9 itself, but not to the latter half of the season. So basically looking at season maybe 3.5 going into season 4 with the Klingon Dominion arc and then moving Klingon Cardassian Dominion arc and then moving into season 5 with a full blown out war, which took us through the rest of the series. DS9 very much becomes that. But in these first 2.5 seasons, it's very much like, here's a thing, and here's another thing, and here's another thing, and there's a thing over here, and maybe there's a message here, and maybe there's nothing. You know what I mean? So we're still kind of stuck in that.
Well, and I think it's a reflection of the times too of when they were written, because we are kind of spoiled now where people just kind of have this idea of we're going to get a serialized story and character development along the way. Where before this stuff, you would have TNG or something where it was, there will be a story that might have 1 or 2 parts. There will be no character development because nothing ever reflects back on itself.
Right.
And this is where they're starting to experiment to go, okay, we're going to do some character development with like the alternate. Oh, and then we also have to tell a story. So they're still trying to figure out, I think, how to merge those two things together because like the alternate is still like the stuff that was developed in that episode is definitely going to show up later. But it didn't really tie into the story that they're trying to tell right now.
Right. Exactly correct. Cool. Well, that wraps us up. That's about as much DS9ing as we got to do. So, Katie, as always, take us on out of here.
For more information about Starfleet International, please visit Grand Petoskey and Region 13 on Facebook.
All righty, Rue. Well, friends, thank you as always for joining us. I have been Charlie Carden. Always a pleasure. You can find me over on Twitter at the C3. And Katie, where do people find you at?
They can find me on Twitter at QT Geek. That's Q_T Geek.
And we are interested in hearing about Star Trek all the time, all the place. Friends, thank you one more time for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
And remember, wherever you go boldly.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.